In the scorching savanna of ancient Africa, there exists a kingdom like no other, the kingdom of Kwa, ruled by the infamous King Temba, was known for its wealth, power, and brutality. King Temba was a ruthless leader, feared by his subjects and neighboring kingdoms alike. His reign was marked by tyranny, and his palace was built on the backs of slaves. Among these slaves was a young woman named Sana. She was captured from a neighboring village during a raid and brought to the palace to serve the king. Sana was known for her striking beauty and fiery spirit, but her sharp tongue often got her into trouble. One day, while serving the king his morning meal, Sana accidentally spilled a tray of food on his lavish robes. The king, enraged, summoned his guards to throw her into the dungeon. But as she was being dragged away, Sana stood tall and looked the king straight into the eye, saying, "You may have power over my body, but you never have power over my spirit." The king, taken aback by her audacity, decided to make an example of her. He sentenced Sana to work in the palace gardens under the scorching sun with no rest or respite. As the days passed, Sana's beauty began to wither away, but her spirit remained unbroken. She would often sing songs of freedom and hope, which echoed through the palace walls, inspiring the other slaves to hold on to their dreams. Meanwhile, King Temba grew more and more fascinated with Sana's deviance. He would often sneak glances at her, walking in the gardens, and wonder what secrets lay behind her fiery eyes. As time passed, Sana's songs became a beacon of hope for the other slaves. They would gather around her in secret, listening to her melodies and finding solace in her words. But King Temba grew wary of her influence and ordered his guards to keep a closer eyes on her. One day, while Sana was walking in the garden, she noticed a young boy, no more than 10 years old, watching her from behind a pillar. He was a new slave, and his eyes held a deep sadness. Sana smiled at him, and he cautiously approached her. "Who are you?" she whispered. "I am Tumi," he replied, his voice barely audible. "I was captured during a raid. I miss my family." Sana's heart went out to him. She took his hand and they walked together, hidden from the guards' praying eyes. As they strolled, Sana told Tumi stories of her own village, of the freedom and joy she once knew. Tumi's eyes sparkled, and for a moment he forgot about his captivity. But their brief respite was interrupted by the sound of approaching guards. Sana pushed Tumi away, warning him to be careful. As the guards closed in, she stood tall, ready to face whatever punishment came her way. The guards dragged Sana to the throne room where King Temba sat, his face stern. "You are a troublemaker, Sana," he growled. "You think you can spread hope and deviance among my slaves? I will show you what happens to those who dare challenge me." Sana stood tall, her eyes flashing with deviance. "You may have power over my bodies, but you will never have power over our minds and hearts." The king snarled, raising his hand to strike her, but just as suddenly he lowered it. "I have a better idea," he said, a sly smile spreading across his face. "You will serve me personally, Sana. You will be my new personal attendant, and if you try anything at all, Tumi will suffer the consequences." Sana's heart sank. She knew she had to protect Tumi, but also knew that serving the king personally would be a nightmare. She nodded, trying to hide her fear. As she followed the king to his chambers, she caught Tumi's eyes, trying to reassure him, but she knew she had to be careful. One misstep and Tumi would pay the price. Sana's day blurred together as she served the king. She poured his wine, fetched his clothes, and endured his tirades. She never forgot Tumi and the promise she made to protect him. One night, as she was helping the king prepare for bed, he turned to her with a calculating gaze. "Sana, I have been thinking," he said, his voice dripping with malice. "You are a clever girl. I have a task for you." Sana's heart raced as he outlined his plan. He wanted her to spy on his advisors to uncover any whispers of rebellion. And if she succeeded, he would grant her freedom. Sana knew it was a trap, but she had to play along. For Tumi's sake, she agreed to the king's terms. As she navigated the treacherous world of court politics, Sana discovered a web of secrets and lies. She found Alice in unexpected places. A young advisor named Lindiwe, who shared her desire for freedom, and a gruff but kind-hearted guard named Jabu, who became her unlikely friend. Together, they uncovered a plot to overthrow the king, led by none other than Lindiwe's brother, a charismatic leader named Kabelu. Sana knew she had to make a choice: to betray Kabelu and secure her own freedom, or to join the rebellion and risk everything. In the end, she chose the latter. On the night of the rebellion, Sana snuck Tumi out of the palace, and together they joined Kabelu's forces. The battle was fierce, but in the end they emerged victorious. King Temba was overthrown, and Kabelu took his place. Sana, hailed as a hero, was granted her freedom. She and Tumi returned to their village, where they were welcomed back with open arms. As they danced under the stairs, Sana knew she had finally found her true home, not in the palace, but in the hearts of those she loved. And though the scars of her past would always remain, she knew she was free at last.